Chapter 32 of Nada the Lily by H. Rider Haggard. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Zenita comes to the king. Dingaan the king sat upon a day in the kraal Umslopogaas, waiting till his impis should return from the Income that is now named the Blood River. He had sent them thither to destroy the laager of the Boers, and thence, as he thought, they would presently return with victory. Idly he sat in the kraal, watching the vultures wheel above the hill of slaughter, and round him stood a regiment. "My birds are hungry," he said to a counsellor. "Doubtless there shall soon be meat to feed them, O king," the counsellor answered. As he spoke, one came near, saying that a woman sought leave to speak to the king upon some great matter. "Let her come," he answered. "I am sick for tidings. Perhaps she can tell of the impi." Presently the woman was led in. She was tall and fair, and she held 2 children by the hand. "What is thine errand?" asked Dingaan. "Justice, O king," she answered. "Ask for blood, it shall be easier to find." "I ask blood, O king." "The blood of whom?" "The blood of Bulalio the slaughterer, chief of the people of the axe, the blood of Nada the Lily, and of all those who cling to her." Now Dingaan sprang up and swore an oath by the head of the Black One who was gone. "What?" he cried. "Does the Lily then live as the soldier thought?" "She lives, O king. She is wife to the slaughterer, and because of her witchcraft he has put me, his first wife, away against all law and honour. Therefore I ask vengeance on the witch, and vengeance also on him who was my husband." "Thou art a good wife," said the king. "May my watching spirit save me from such a one. Hearken, I would gladly grant thy desire, for I too hate this slaughterer, and I too would crush this Lily. Yet, woman, thou comest in a bad hour. Here I have but 1 regiment, and I think that the slaughterer may take some killing. Wait till my impis return from wiping out the white Amabuna, and it shall be as thou dost desire. Whose are those children?" "They are my children, and the children of Bulalio, who was my husband." "The children of him whom thou wouldst cause to be slain?" "Yea, king." "Surely, woman, thou art as good a mother as wife," said Dingaan. "Now I have spoken, begone." But the heart of Zenita was hungry for vengeance, vengeance swift and terrible on the Lily who lay in her place, and on her husband who had thrust her aside for the Lily's sake. She did not desire to wait. No, not even for an hour. "Hearken, O king," she cried. "The tale is not yet all told. This man Bulalio plots against thy throne with Mopo, son of Macedama, who was thy counsellor." "He plots against my throne, woman? The lizard plots against the cliff on which it suns itself? Then let him plot, and as for Mopo, I will catch him yet." "Yes, O king, but that is not all the tale. This man has another name. He is named Umslopogaas, son of Mopo, but he is no son of Mopo. He is son to the Black One who is dead, the mighty king who was thy brother by Baleka, sister to Mopo. Yes, I know it from the lips of Mopo. I know all the tale. He is heir to thy throne by blood, O king, and thou sittest in his place." For a little while Dingaan sat astounded. Then he commanded Zenita to draw near and tell him that tale. Now, behind the stool on which he sat stood 2 counsellors only, nobles whom Dingaan loved, and these alone had heard the last words of Zenita. he bade these nobles stand in front of him, out of earshot and away from every other man. Then Zenita drew near and told Dingaan the tale of the birth of Umslopogaas and all that followed, and by many a token and many a deed of Chaka's which he remembered, Dingaan the king knew that it was a true story. When at length she had done, he summoned the captain of the regiment that stood around. He was a great man named Faku, and he also summoned certain men who do the king's bidding. To the captain of the impi he spoke sharply, saying, "Take 3 companies and guides, and come by night to the town of the people of the axe, that is by Ghost Mountain, and burn it, and slay all the wizards who sleep therein. Most of all, slay the chief of the people, who is named Bulalio the Slaughterer, or Umslopogaas. Kill him by torture if you may, but kill him and bring his head to me. Take that wife of his, who is known as Nada the Lily, alive if ye can, and bring her to me, for I would cause her to be slain here. Bring the cattle also. Now go, and go swiftly this hour. If ye return, having failed in one jot of my command, ye die, every one of you. Ye die, and slowly. Begone!" The captain saluted, and running to his regiment, issued a command. 3 full companies leapt forward at his word, and ran after him through the gates of the Kraal Umgugungluvu, heading for the Ghost Mountain. Then Dingaan called to those who do the king's bidding, and pointing to the 2 nobles, his counsellors, who had heard the words of Zenita, commanded that they should be killed. The nobles heard, and having saluted the king, covered their faces, knowing that they must die because they had learned too much. So they were killed. Now it was one of these counsellors who had said that doubtless meat would soon be found to feed the king's birds. Then the king commanded those who do his bidding that they should take the children of Zenita and make away with them. But when Zenita heard this, she cried aloud, for she loved her children. Then Dingaan mocked her. "What?" he said. "Art thou a fool as well as wicked? Thou sayest that thy husband, whom thou hast given to death, is born of one who is dead, and his heir to my throne. Thou sayest also that these children are born of him. Therefore, when he is dead, they will be heirs to my throne. Am I then mad that I should suffer them to live? Woman, thou hast fallen into thine own trap. Take them away." Now Zenita tasted of the cup which she had brewed for other lips, and grew distraught in her misery, and wrung her hands, crying that she repented of the evil, and would warn Umslopogaas and the Lily of that which awaited them. And she turned to run towards the gates, but the king laughed and nodded, and they brought her back, and presently she was dead also. Thus then, my father, prospered the wickedness of Zenita, the head wife of Umslopogaas, my fosterling. Now these were the last slayings that were wrought at the Kraal Umgugungluvu, for just as Dingaan had made an end of them, and once more grew weary, he lifted his eyes and saw the hillsides black with men, who by their dress were of his own impi, men whom he had sent out against the Boers. And yet where was the proud array? Where the plumes and shields? Where the song of victory? Here indeed were soldiers, but they walked in groups like women, and hung their heads like chidden children. Then he learned the truth. The impy had been defeated by the banks of the Income. Thousands had perished at the Lager, mowed down by the guns of the Boers. Thousands more had been drowned in the Income till the waters were red, and the bodies of the slain pushed each other under, and those who still lived walked upon them. Dingaan heard and was seized with fear, for it was said that the Amabuna followed fast on the track of the conquered. That day he fled to the bush on the black Umfolozi river, and that night the sky was crimson with the burning of the Kraal Umgugungluvu, where the elephants should trumpet. No more, and the vultures were scared from the hill of slaughter by the roaring of the flames. Galazi sat on the lap of the stone witch, gazing towards the wide plains below, that were yet white with the moon, though the night grew towards the morning. Grey Snout whined at his side, and Death-grip thrust his muzzle into his hand, but Galazi took no heed, for he was brooding on the fall of Umslopogaas from the man that he had been to the level of a woman's slave, and on the breaking up of the people of the axe because of the coming of Nada. For all the women and children were gone to this feast of women, and would not return for long, and it seemed to Galazi that many of the men had slipped away also, as though they smelt some danger from afar. "Ah, Death-grip," said Galazi aloud to the wild brute at his side, "changed is the Wolf-King, my brother, all changed because of a woman's kiss. Now he hunts no more shall Groan-maker be aloft. It is a woman's kiss he craves, not the touch of your rough tongue. It is a woman's hand he holds, not the smooth haft of horn. He who of all men was the fiercest and the first, for this last shame has overtaken him. Surely Chaka was a great king, though an evil, and he showed his greatness when he forbade marriage to the warriors, marriage that makes the heart soft and turns blood to water." Now Galazi ceased and gazed idly towards the kraal of the people of the axe, and as he looked, his eyes caught a gleam of light that seemed to travel in and out of the edge of the shadow of the ghost mountain, as a woman's needle travels through a skin, now seen and now lost in the skin. He started and watched. There the light came out from the shadow. Now, by Chaka's head, it was the light of spears. One moment more Galazi watched. It was a little impy. Perhaps they numbered 200 men, running silently, but not to battle, for they wore no plumes. Yet they went out to kill, for they ran in companies, and each man carried assegais and a shield. Now Galazi had heard tell of such impis that hunt by night, and he knew well that these were the king's dogs, and their game was men, a big kraal of sleeping men. Otherwise there had been fewer dogs. Is a whole pack sent out to catch an antelope on its form? Galazi wondered whom they sought. Now they turned to the ford, and he knew. It was his brother Umslopogaas, and Nada the Lily, and the people of the axe. These were the king's dogs, and Zenita had let them slip. For this reason she had called a feast of women, and taken the children with her. For this reason so many had been summoned from the kraal by one means or another. It was that they might escape the slaughter. Galazi bounded to his feet. For one moment he thought, might not these hunters be hunted? Could he not destroy them by the jaws of the wolves, as once before they had destroyed a certain impi of the king's? Aye, If he had seen them but 1 hour before, then scarcely a man of them should have lived to reach the stream, for he would have waylaid them with his wolves. But now it might not be. The soldiers neared the ford, and Galazi knew well that his grey people would not hunt on the further plain, though for this he had heard one reason only, that which was given him by the lips of the dead in a dream. What then might be done? One thing alone, warn Umslopogaas. Yet how? For him who could swim a rushing river, there was indeed a swifter way to the place of the people of the axe, a way that was to the path of the impy, as is the bowstring to the strong bow. And yet they had travelled well nigh half the length of the bow. Still, he might do it, he whose feet were the swiftest in the land, except those of Umslopogaas. At the least he would try. Mayhap the impy would tarry to drink at the ford. So Galazi thought in his heart, and his thought was swift as the light. Then, with a bound, he was away down the mountainside. From boulder to boulder he leapt like a buck. He crashed through the brake like a ball. He skimmed the level like a swallow. The mountain was travelled now. There in front of him lay the yellow river, foaming in its flood. So he had swum it before when he went to seek the dead. Ah, a good leap far out into the torrent. It was strong, but he breasted it. He was through. He stood upon the bank, shaking the water from him like a dog, and now he was away up the narrow gorge of stone to the long slope, running low as his wolves rang. Before him lay the town. One side shone silver with the sinking moon, one was grey with the breaking dawn. Ah, they were there. He saw them moving through the grass by the eastern gate. He saw the long lines of slayers creep to the left and the right. How could he pass them before the circle of death was drawn? 6 spear throws to run, and they had but such a little way. The mealy plants were tall, and at a spot they almost touched the fence. Up the path, could Umslopogaas, his brother, move more fast, he wondered, than the wolf who sped to save him? He was there, hidden by the mealy stalks, and there, along the fence to the right and to the left, the slayers crept. "Wow, what was that?" said one soldier of the king to another man, as they joined their card, completing the death circle. "Wow, something great and black crashed through the fence before me." "I heard it, brother," answered the other man. "I heard it, but I saw nothing. It must have been a dog. No man could leap so high." "More like a wolf," said the first. "At the least, let us pray that it was not an Esadowan, who will put us into the hole in its back. Is your fire ready, brother? Wow, those wizards shall wake warm. The signal should be soon." Then arose the sound of a great voice crying, "Awake, ye sleepers, the foe is at your gates." Footnote: Esadowan, a fabulous animal reported by the Zulus to carry off human beings in a hole in its back. End of footnote. End of chapter 32. Chapter 33 of Nada the Lily by H. Rider Haggard. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The end of the people, black and grey. Galazi rushed through the town, crying aloud, and behind him rose the stir of men. All slept, and no sentinels were set, for Umslopogaas was so lost in his love for the lily that he forgot his wisdom, and thought no more of war or death, or of the hate of Dingaan. Presently the wolf came to the large new hut which Umslopogaas had caused to be built for Nada the Lily, and entered it, for there he knew that he should find his brother Bolalio. On the far side of the hut the two lay sleeping, and the head of Umslopogaas rested on Lily's breast, and by his side gleamed the great axe Groan-maker. "Awake!" cried the wolf. Now Umslopogaas sprang to his feet, grasping at his axe, but Nada threw her arms wide, murmuring, "Let me sleep on. Sweet is sleep." "Sound shall ye sleep anon," gasped Galazi. "Swift, brother, bind on the wolf's hide, take shield, swift, I say, for the slayers of the king are at your gates." Now Nada sprang up also, and they did his bidding like people in a dream, and, while they found their garments and a shield, Galazi took beer and drank it, and got his breath again. They stood without the hut. Now the heaven was grey, and east and west and north and south tongues of flame shot up against the sky, for the town had been fired by the slayers. Umslopogaas looked, and his sense came back to him. He understood. "Which way, brother?" he said. "Through the fire and the impi to our grey people on the mountain," said Galazi. "There, if we can win it, we shall find succour." "What of my people in the kraal?" asked Umslopogaas. "They are not many, brother. The women and the children are gone. I have roused the men. Most will escape. Hence, ere we burn." Now they ran towards the fence, and as they went, men joined them to the number of 10. Half awakened, fear-stricken, armed, some with spears, some with clubs, and for the most part naked, they sped on together towards the fence of the town that was now but a ring of fire, Umslopogaas and Galazi in front, each holding the Lily by a hand. They neared the fence. From without came the shouts of the slayers. Lo, it was a fire! Nada shrank back in fear, but Umslopogaas and Galazi dragged her on. They rushed at the blazing fence, smiting it with axe and club. It broke before them. They were through, but little harmed. Without were a knot of the slayers, standing back a small space because of the heat of the flames. The slayers saw them, and crying, "This is Bulilio, kill the wizard!" sprang towards them with uplifted spears. Now the people of the axe made a ring round Nada, and in the front of it were Umslopogaas and Galazi. Then they rushed on and met those of the slayers who stood before them, and the men of Dingaan were swept away and scattered by Groan-maker and the Watcher, as dust is swept of a wind, as grass is swept by a sickle. They were through with only one man slain, but the cry went up that the chief of the wizards and the Lily, his wife, had fled. Then, as it was these whom he was chiefly charged to kill, the captain called off the impi from watching for the dwellers of the town, and started in pursuit of Umslopogaas. Now at this time nearly 100 men of the people of the axe had been killed, and of the slayers some 50 men, for, having been awakened by the crying of Galazi, the soldiers of the axe fought bravely, though none saw where his brother stood, and none knew whither their chief had fled, except those 10 who went with the brethren. Meanwhile, the wolf brethren and those with them were well away, and it had been easy for them to escape, who were the swiftest footed of any in the land. But the pace of a regiment is the pace of its slowest footed soldier, and Nada could not run with the wolf brethren. Yet they made good speed, and were half-way down the gorge that led to the river before the companies of Dingaan poured into it. Now they came to the end of it, and the foe was near. This end of the gorge is narrow, my father, like the neck of a gourd. Then Galazi stopped and spoke. "Halt, ye people of the axe," he said, "and let us talk a while with these who follow till we get our breath again. But you, my brother, pass the river with Lily in your hand. We will join you in the forest, but if perchance we cannot find you, you know what must be done. Set the Lily in the cave, then return and call up the grey impy. Wow, my brother, I must find you if I may, for if these men of Dingaan have a mind for sport, there shall be such a hunting on the Ghost Mountain as the old witch has not seen. Go now, my brother." "It is not my way to turn and run while others stand and fight," growled Umslopogaas. "Yet, because of Nada, it seems that I must."
"Oh, heed me not, my love," said Nada. "I have brought the sorrow. I am weary. Let me die. Kill me and save yourselves."
For answer, Umslopogaas took her by the hand and fled towards the river, but before he reached it, he heard the sounds of the fray, the war cry of the slayers as they poured upon the people of the axe, the howl of his brother the wolf when the battle joined, aye, and the crash of the watcher as the blow went home. "Well bitten, wolf," he said, stopping. "That one shall need no more. Oh, that I might—" But again he looked at Nada and sped on. Now they had leaped into the foaming river, and here it was well that the lily could swim, else both had been lost. But they won through and passed forward to the mountain's flank. Here they walked on among the trees till the forest was almost past, and at length Umslopogaas heard the howling of a wolf. Then he must set Nada on his shoulders and carry her as once Galazi had carried another, for it was death for any except the wolf brethren to walk on the Ghost Mountain when the wolves were awake. Presently the wolves flocked around him and leaped upon him in joy, glaring with fierce eyes at her who sat upon his shoulders. Nada saw him and almost fell from her seat, fainting with fear, for they were many and dreadful, and when they howled her blood turned to ice. But Umslopogaas cheered her, telling her that these were his dogs with whom he went out hunting, and with whom he should hunt presently. At length they came to the knees of the old witch and the entrance to the cave. It was empty except for a wolf or two, for Galazi abode here seldom now, but when he was on the mountain would sleep in the forest which was nearer the kraal of his brother the slaughterer. "Here you must stay, sweet," said Umslopogaas when he had driven out the wolves. "Here you must rest till this little matter of the slayers is finished. Would that we had brought food, but we had little time to seek it. See now, I will show you the secret of the stone. Thus far I will push it, no farther. Now a touch only is needed to send it over the socket and home, but then they must be 2 strong men who can pull it back again. Therefore push it no farther, except in the utmost need, lest it remain where it fall, whether you will it or not. Have no fear, you are safe here. None know of this place except Galazi, myself, and the wolves, and none shall find it. Now I must be going to find Galazi, if he still lives. If not, to make what play I can against the slayers, alone with the wolves." Now Nada wept, saying that she feared to be left, and that she should never see him more, and her grief wrung his heart. Nevertheless, Umslopogaas kissed her and went, closing the stone after him, in that fashion of which he had spoken. When the stone was shut, the cave was almost dark, except for a ray of light that entered by a hole little larger than a man's hand, that, looked on from within, was on the right of the stone. Nada sat herself so that this ray struck full on her, for she loved light, and without it she would pine as flowers do. There she sat and thought in the darksome cave, and was filled with fear and sorrow, and while she brooded thus, suddenly the ray went out, and she heard a noise as of some beast that smells at prey. She looked, and in the gloom she saw the sharp nose and grinning fangs of a wolf that were thrust towards her through the little hole. Nada cried out in fear, and the fangs were snatched back. But presently she heard a scratching without the cave, and saw the stone shake. Then she thought in her foolishness that the wolf knew how to open the stone, and that he would do this and devour her, for she had heard the tale that all these wolves were the ghosts of evil men, having the understanding of men. So in her fear and folly she seized the rock and dragged on it, as Umslopogaas had shown her how to do. It shook, it slipped over the socket ledge, and rolled home like a pebble down the mouth of a gourd.
"Now I am safe from the wolves," said Nada. "See, I cannot so much as stir the stone from within, and still less can they do so from without."
And she laughed a little, then ceased from laughing and spoke again.
"Yet it would be ill if Umslopogaas came back no more to roll away that rock, for then I should be like one in a grave, as one who is placed in a grave, being yet strong and quick."
She shuddered as she thought of it, but presently started up and set her ear to the hole to listen, for from far down the mountain there rose a mighty howling and a din of men. When Umslopogaas had shut the cave, he moved swiftly down the mountain, and with him went certain of the wolves. Not all, for he had not summoned them. His heart was heavy, for he feared that Galazi was no more. Also, he was mad with rage, and plotted in himself to destroy the slayers of the king, every man of them. But first he must learn what they would do. Presently, as he wended, he heard a long, low howl far away in the forest. Then he rejoiced, for he knew the call. It was the call of Galazi, who had escaped the spears of the slayers. Swiftly he ran, calling in answer. He won the place. There, seated on a stone, resting himself, was Galazi, and round him surged the numbers of the grey people. Umslopogaas came to him and looked at him, for he seemed somewhat weary. There were flesh wounds on his great breast and arms. The little shield was well nigh hewn to strips, and the watcher showed signs of war. "How went it, brother?" asked Umslopogaas. "Not so ill, but all those who stood with me in the way are dead, and with them a few of the foe. I alone am fled like a coward. They came on us thrice, but we held them back till the lily was safe. Then, all our men being down, I ran Umslopogaas, and swam the torrent, for I was minded to die here in my own place." Now, though he had said little of it, I must tell you, my father, that Galazi had made a great slaughter there in the neck of the donga. Afterwards I counted the slain, and they were many. The 9 men of the people of the axe were hidden in them. "Perhaps it shall be the slayers who die, brother." "Perhaps, at least, there shall be death for some. Still, it is in my mind, slaughterer, that our brotherhood draws to an end, for the fate of him who bears the watcher, and which my father foretold, is upon me. If so, farewell. While it's lasted, our friendship has been good, and its ending shall be good. Moreover, it would have endured for many a year to come, had you not sought, slaughterer, to make good better, and to complete our joy of fellowship and war with the love of women. From that source flow these ills, as a river from a spring. But so it was fated. If I fall in this fray, may you yet live on to fight in many another, and at the last to die gloriously with axe aloft, and may you find a brisker man and a better watcher to serve you in your need. Should you fall and I live on, I promise this: I will avenge you to the last and guard the lily whom you love, offering her comfort, but no more. Now the foe draw on. They have travelled round about by the ford, for they dared not face the torrent, and they cried to me that they are sworn to slay us or be slain, as Dingaan the king commanded. So the fighting will be of the best. if indeed they do not run before the fangs of the grey people. Now, chief, speak your word that I may obey it." Thus Galazi spoke in the circle of the wolves, while Umslopogaas leaned upon his axe groan-maker and listened to him, aye, and wept as he listened, for after the lily and me, Mopo, he loved Galazi more dearly of all who lived. Then he answered, "Were it not for one in the cave above who is helpless and tender, I would swear to you, wolf, that if you fall, on your carcass I will die, and I do swear that, should you fall, while I live, Groan-maker shall be busy from year to year, till every man of yonder impi is as you are. Perchance I did ill, Galazi, when I first hearkened to the words of Zenita, and suffered women to come between us. May we one day find a land where there are no women, and war only, for in that land we shall grow great. But now, at the least, we will make a good end to this fellowship, and the grey people shall fight their fill, and the old witch who sits aloft waiting for the world to die shall smile to see that fight, if she never smiled before. This is my word, that we fall upon the men of Dingaan twice, once in the glade of the forest whither they will come presently, and, if we are beaten back, then we must stand for the last time on the knees of the witch in front of the cave where Nada is. Say, wolf, will the grey folk fight? To the last, brother, so long as one is left to lead them. After that I do not know. Still, they have only fangs to set against spears. Slaughterer, your plan is good. Come, I am rested. So they rose and numbered their flock, and all were there, though it was not as it had been years ago, when first the wolf brethren hunted on Ghost Mountain. For many of the wolves had died by men's spears when they harried the kraals of men, and no young were born to them. Then, as once before, the pack was halved, and half the she-wolves went with Umslopogaas, and half the dog-wolves went with Galazi. Now they passed down the forest paths, and hid in the tangle of the thickets at the head of the darksome glen, one on each side of the glen. Here they waited till they heard the footfall of the impi of the king's slayers, as it came slowly along, seeking them. In front of the impi went 2 soldiers, watching for an ambush, and these 2 men were the same who had talked together that dawn, when Galazi sprang between them. Now also they spoke as they peered this way and that. Then, seeing nothing, stood a while in the mouth of the glen, waiting the coming of their company, and their words came to the ears of Umslopogaas. "An awful place this, my brother," said one, "a place full of ghosts and strange sounds, of hands that seem to press us back, and whinings as of invisible wolves. It is named Ghost Mountain, and well named. Would that the king had found other business for us than the slaying of these sorcerers, for they are sorcerers indeed, and this is the home of their sorceries. Tell me, brother, what was that leaped between us this morning in the dark? I say it was a wizard. Wow, they are all wizards. Could any who was but a man have done the deeds which he who is named the Wolf wrought down by the river yonder, and then have escaped? Had the axe but stayed with the club, they would have eaten up our impi." "The axe had a woman to watch," laughed the other. "Yes, it is true that this is a place of wizards and evil things. Methinks I see the red eyes of the Esedoana glaring at us through the dark of the trees, and smell their smell. Yet these wizards must be caught, for know this, my brother, if we return to Umgugungluvu with the king's command undone, then there are stakes hardening in the fire of which we shall taste the point. If we are all killed in the catching, and some, it seems, are missing already, yet they must be caught. Say, my brother, shall we draw on? The impi is nigh. Would that Faku, our captain yonder, might find 2 others to take our place, for in this thicket I had rather run last than first. Well, here leaves the spoor, a wondrous mass of wolf spoor,
mixed with the footprints of men. Perhaps they are sometimes the one and sometimes the other. Who knows, my brother? It is a land of ghosts and wizards. Let us on, let us on.
Now all this while the wolf brethren had much ado to keep their people quiet, for their mouths watered and their eyes shone at the sight of the men, and at length it could be done no more, for with a howl a single she-wolf rushed from her lair and leapt at the throat of the man who spoke. Nor did she miss her grip. Down went wolf and man, rolling together on the ground, and there they killed each other.
The Esodowana are upon us, cried the other scout, and, turning, fled towards the impi. But he never reached it, for with fearful howlings the ghost wolves broke their cover and rushed on him from the right and the left, and lo, there was nothing of him left except his spear alone. Now a low cry of fear rose from the impi, and some turned to fly, but Faku the captain, a great and brave man, shouted to them, "Stand firm, children of the king, stand firm. These are no Esidawana, these are but the wolf brethren and their pack. What, will ye run from dogs, ye who have laughed at the spears of men? Ring round, stand fast." The soldiers heard the voice of their captain, and they obeyed his voice, forming a double circle, a ring within a ring. They looked to the right. There, Groanmaker aloft, the wolf fangs on his brow, the worn wolf hide streaming on the wind. Bulalio rushed upon them like a storm, and with him came his red-eyed company. They looked to the left. Ah, well, they know that mighty watcher. Have they not heard his strokes down by the river? And well they know the giant who wields it like a wand, the Wolf King, with the strength of 10. Wow, they are here! See the people black and grey. Hear them howl their war chant. Look how they leap like water, leap in a foam of fangs against the hedge of spears. The circle is broken. Groanmaker has broken it. Ah, Galazi is also through the double ring. Now must men stand back to back or perish. How long did it last? Who can say? Time flies fast when blows fall thick. At length the brethren are beaten back. They break out as they broke in, and are gone, with such of their wolf folk as were left alive. Yet that impi was somewhat the worst. But 1/3 of those lived who looked on the sun without the forest. The rest lay smitten, torn, mangled, dead, hidden under the heaps of the bodies of wild beasts. Now this is a battle of evil spirits that live in the shapes of the wolves, and as for the wolf brethren, they are sorcerers of the rarest, said Faku the captain. And such sorcerers I love, for they fight furiously. Yet I will slay them, or be slain. At the least, if there be few of us left, the most of the wolves are dead also, and the arms of the wizards grow weary. So he moved forward up the mountain, with those of the soldiers who remained, and all the way the wolves harried them, pulling down a man here and a man there. But though they heard and saw them cheering on their pack, the wolf brethren attacked them no more, for they saved their strength for the last fight of all. The road was long up the mountain, and the soldiers knew little of the path, and ever the ghost wolves harried on their flanks. So it was evening before they came to the feet of the stone witch, and began to climb to the platform of her knees. There, on her knees as it were, they saw the wolf brethren standing side by side, such a pair as were not elsewhere in the world, and they seemed afire, for the sunset beat upon them, and the wolves crept round their feet,
red with blood and fire. A glorious pair, quoth great Faku. Would that I fought with them rather than against them. Yet they must die. Then he began to climb to the knees of the witch. Now Umslopogaas glanced up at the stone face of her who sat aloft, and it was alight with the sunset. Said I not that the old witch would smile at this fray? He cried. Lo, she smiles. Up, Galazi, let us spend the remnant of our people on the foe, and fight this fight out man to man, with no beast to spoil it. Ho, blood and grey snout! Ho, death grip! Ho, wood dwellers grey and black! At them, my children! The wolves heard. They were few, and they were sorry to see, with weariness and wounds, but still they were fierce. With a howl, for the last time they leaped down upon the foe, tearing, harrying, and killing, till they themselves were dead by the spear, every one of them except Death Grip, who crept back sorely wounded, to die with Galazi. Now I am a chief without a people, cried Galazi. Well, it has been my lot in life. So it was in the Halakazi kraals, so it is on Ghost Mountain at the last, and so also shall it be, even for the greatest kings when they come to their ends, seeing that they too must die alone. Say, slaughterer, choose where you will stand, to the left or to the right. Now, my father, the track below separated because of a boulder, and there were two little paths that led to the platform of the witch's knees, with perhaps 10 paces between them. Umslopogaas guarded the left-hand path, and Galazi took the right. Then they waited, having spears in their hands. Presently the soldiers came round the rock and rushed up against them, some on one path and some on the other. Then the brethren hurled their spears at them and killed 3 men. Now the assegais were done, and the foe was on them. Umslopogaas bends forward, his long arm shoots out, the axe gleams, and a man who came on falls back. One, cries Umslopogaas. One, my brother, answers Galazi as he draws back the watcher from his blow. A soldier rushes forward, singing. To and fro he moves in front of Umslopogaas, his spear poised to strike. Groanmaker swoops down, but the man leaps back, the blow misses, and the slaughterer's guard is down. A poor stroke, sorcerer, cries the man as he rushes in to stab him. Lo, the axe wheels in the air, it circles swiftly low down by the ground, it smites upward. Before the spearsman can strike, the horn of Groanmaker has sped up from chin to brain. But a good return, fool, says Umslopogaas. 2, cries Galazi from the right. 2, my brother, answers Umslopogaas. Again 2 men come on, one against each to find no better luck. The cry of 3 passes from brother to brother, and after it rises the cry of 4. Now Faku bids the men who are left to hold their shields together and push the 2 from the mouths of the paths, and this they do, losing 4 more men at the hands of the brethren before it is done. Now we are on the open, ring them round and down with them, cries Faku. But who shall ring round Groanmaker that shines on all sides at once? Groanmaker, who falls heavily no more, but pecks and pecks and pecks like a wood bird on a tree, and never pecks in vain. Who shall ring round those feet swifter than the Sasabi of the plains? Wow, he is here, he is there, he is a sorcerer. Death is in his hand, and death looks out of his eyes. Galazi lives yet, for still there comes the sound of the watcher as it thunders on the shields, and the wolf's hoarse cry of the number of the slain. He has a score of wounds, yet he fights on. His leg is almost hewn from him with an axe, yet he fights on. His back is pierced again and again, yet he fights on. But 2 are left alive before him. 1 twists round and spears him from behind. He heeds it not, but smites down the foe in front. Then he turns, and whirling the watcher on high, brings him down for the last time, and so mightily that the man before him is crushed like an egg. Galazi brushes the blood from his eyes and glares round on the dead. "All, slaughterer!" he cries. "All save 2, my brother," comes the answer, sounding above the clash of steel and the sound of smitten shields. Now the wolf would come to him, but cannot, for his life ebbs. "Fare you well, my brother. Death is good. Thus indeed I would die, for I have made me a mat of men to lie on," he cried with a great voice. "Fare you well. Sleep softly, wolf," came the answer. "All save 1. Now Galazi fell, dying on the dead, but he was not altogether gone, for he still spoke. "All save 1. Ha ha! Ill for that one then, when Groan-maker is yet up. It is well to have lived so to die. Victory, victory!" And Galazi the Wolf struggled to his knees, and for the last time shook the watcher about his head, then fell again and died. Umslopogaas, the son of Chaka, and Faku, the captain of Dingaan, gazed on each other. They alone were left standing upon the mountain, for the rest were all down. Umslopogaas had many wounds. Faku was unhurt. He was a strong man, also armed with an axe. Faku laughed aloud. "So it has come to this, slaughterer," he said, "that you and I must settle whether the king's word be done or no. Well, I will say that however it should fall out, I count it a great fortune to have seen this fight, and the highest of honours to have had to do with 2 such warriors. Rest you a little, slaughterer, before we close. That wolf brother of yours died well, and if it is given me to conquer in this bout, I will tell the tale of his end from kraal to kraal throughout the land, and it shall be a tale for ever." End of chapter 33. Chapter 34 of Nada the Lily by H. Rider Haggard. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Lily's Farewell. Umslopogaas listened, but he made no answer to the words of Faku the captain, though he liked them well, for he would not waste his breath in talking, and the light grew low. "I am ready, man of Dingaan," he said, and lifted his axe. Now for a while the 2 circled round and round, each waiting for a chance to strike. Presently Faku smote at the head of Umslopogaas, but the slaughterer lifted Groan-maker to ward the blow. Faku crooked his arm and let the axe curl downwards, so that its keen edge smote Umslopogaas upon the head, severing his man's ring and the scalp beneath. Made mad with the pain, the slaughterer awoke as it were. He grasped Groan-maker with both hands and struck thrice. The first blow hewed away the plumes and shield of Faku and drove him back a spear's length. The second missed its aim. The third and mightiest twisted in his wet hands so that the axe smote sideways. Nevertheless, it fell full on the breast of the captain Faku, shattering his bones and sweeping him from the ledge of rock on to the slope beneath, where he lay still. "It is finished with the daylight," said Umslopogaas, smiling grimly. "Now, Dingaan, send more slayers to seek your slain," and he turned to find Nada in the cave. But Faku the captain was not yet dead, though he was hurt to the death. He sat up, and with his last strength he hurled the axe in his hand at him whose might had prevailed against him. The axe sped true, and Umslopogaas did not see it fly. It sped true, and its point struck him on the left temple, driving in the bone and making a great hole. Then Faku fell back dying, and Umslopogaas threw up his arms and dropped as an ox, and lay like one dead under the shadow of a stone. All day long Nada crouched in the cave, listening to the sounds of war that crept faintly up the mountainside, howling of wolves, shouting of men, and the clamour of iron on iron. All day long she sat, and now evening came apace, and the noise of battle drew near, swelled and sank and died away. She heard the voices of the wolf brethren as they called to each other like bucks, naming the number of the slain. She heard Galazi's dying cry of "Victory!" and her heart leapt to it, though she knew that there was death in the cry. Then for the last time she heard the faint ringing of iron on iron, and the light went out, and all grew still. All grew still as the night. There came no more shouting of men, and no more clash of arms, no howlings of wolves, no cries of pain or triumph. All was quiet as death, for death had taken all. For a while Nada the Lily sat in the dark of the cave, saying to herself,
"Presently he will come, my husband. He will surely come. The slayers are slain. He does not but tarry to bind his wounds. A scratch, perchance, here and there. Yes, he will come, and it is well, for I am weary of my loneliness, and this place is grim and evil."
Thus she spoke to herself in hope, but nothing came except the silence. Then she spoke again, and her voice echoed in the hollow cave.
"Now I will be bold. I will fear nothing. I will push aside the stone and go out to find him. I know well he does but linger to tend to some who are wounded. Perhaps Galazi. Doubtless Galazi is wounded. I must go and nurse him, though he never loved me, and I do not love him overmuch, who would stand between me and my husband. This wild wolf man is a foe to women, and most of all a foe to me. Yet I will be kind to him. Come, I will go at once."
And she rose and pushed at the rock. Why, what was this? It did not stir. Then she remembered that she had pulled it beyond the socket because of her fear of the wolf, and that the rock had slipped a little way down the neck of the cave. Umslopogaas had told her that she must not do this, and she had forgotten his words in her foolishness. Perhaps she could move the stone. No, not by the breadth of a grain of corn. She was shut in, without food or water, and here she must bide till Umslopogaas came. And if he did not come, then she must surely die. Now she shrieked aloud in her fear, calling on the name of Umslopogaas. The walls of the cave answered,
Umslopogaas! Umslopogaas!
And that was all. Afterwards madness fell upon Nada, my daughter, and she lay in the cave for days and nights, nor knew ever how long she lay. And with her madness came visions, for she dreamed that the dead one, whom Galazi had told her of, sat once more aloft in his niche at the end of the cave, and spoke to her, saying, Galazi is dead. The fate of him who bears the watcher has fallen on him. Dead are the ghost wolves. I also am dead of hunger in this cave, and as I died, so shall you die, Nada the lily. Nada, star of death, because of whose beauty and foolishness all this death has come about. Thus it seemed to Nada in her madness that the shadow of him who had sat in the niche spoke to her from hour to hour. It seemed to Nada in her madness that twice the light shone through the hole by the rock, and that was day, and twice it went out, and that was night. A third time the rays shone and died away, and lo, her madness left her, and she awoke to know that she was dying, and that a voice she loved spoke without the hole, saying in hollow accents, Nada, do you still live, Nada?
Yea, she answered hoarsely, water, give me water.
Next she heard a sound as of a great snake dragging itself along painfully. A while passed, then a trembling hand thrust a little gourd of water through the hole. She drank, and now she could speak, though the water seemed to flow through her veins like fire.
Is it indeed you, Umslopogaas? She said. Or are you dead, and do I dream of you?
It is I, Nada, said the voice. Hearken, have you drawn the rock home?
Alas, yes, she answered. Perhaps if the two of us strive at it, it will move.
Aye, if our strength were what it was, but now... Still, let us try. So they strove with the rock, but the two of them together had not the strength of a girl, and it would not stir.
Give over, Umslopogaas, said Nada. We do but waste the time that is left to me. Let us talk.
For a while there was no answer, for Umslopogaas had fainted, and Nada beat her breast, thinking that he was dead. Presently he spoke, however, saying, It may not be. We must perish here, one on each side of the stone, not seeing the other's face, for my might is as water. Nor can I stand upon my feet to go and seek for food.
Are you wounded, Umslopogaas? asked Nada.
Aye, Nada, I am pierced through the brain with the point of an axe. No fair stroke. The captain of Dingaan hurled it at me when I thought him dead, and I fell. I do not know how long I have lain yonder under the shadow of the rock, but it must be long, for my limbs are wasted, and those who fell in the fray are picked clean by the vultures. All except Galazi, for the old wolf Deathgrip lies on his breast dying, but not dead, licking my brother's wounds, and scares the fowls away. It was the beak of a vulture who had smelt me out at last that woke me from my sleep beneath the stone, Nada, and I crept hither. Would that he had not wakened me. Would that I had died as I lay, rather than lived a little while till you perished thus, like a trapped fox, Nada, and presently I follow you.
It is hard to die so, Umslopogaas, she answered. I, who am yet young and fair, who love you and hoped to give you children. But so it has come about, and it may not be put away. I am well nigh sped, husband. Horror and fear have conquered me. My strength fails, but I suffer little. Let us talk no more of death. Let us rather speak of our childhood, when we wandered hand in hand. Let us talk also of our love, and of the happy hours that we have spent since your great axe rang upon the rock in the Halakazi caves, and my fear told you the secret of my womanhood. See, I thrust my hand through the hole. Can you not kiss it, Umslopogaas?
Now Umslopogaas stooped his shattered head and kissed the lily's little hand. Then he held it in his own, and so they sat till the end, he without, resting his back against the rock, she within, lying on her side, her arms stretched through the little hole. They spoke of their love, and tried to forget their sorrow in it. He told her also of the fray that had been, and how it went.
Ah, she said, that was Zenita's work. Zenita, who hated me, and justly. Doubtless she set Dingaan on this path.
A little while gone, quoth Umslopogaas, and I hoped that your last breath and mine might pass together, Nada, and that we might go together to seek great Galazi, my brother, where he is. Now I hope that help will find me, and that I may live a little while, because of a certain vengeance which I would wreak.
Speak not of vengeance, husband, she answered. I too am near to that land where the slayer and the slain, the shedder of blood and the avenger of blood, are lost in the same darkness. I would die with love, and love only in my heart, and your name and yours only on my lips, so that if anywhere we live again, it shall be ready to spring forth to greet you. Yet, husband, it is in my heart that you will not go with me, but that you shall live on to die the greatest of deaths, far away from here, and because of another woman. It seems that, as I lay in the dark of this cave, I saw you, Umslopogaas, a great man, gaunt and grey, stricken to the death, and the axe groan-maker wavering aloft, and many a man dead upon a white and shining way. And about you, the fair faces of white women, and you had a hole in your forehead, husband, on the left side.
That is like to be true, if I live, he answered, but the bone of my temple is shattered. Now Nada ceased speaking, and for a long while was silent. Umslopogaas was also silent and torn with pain and sorrow, because he must lose the lily thus, and she must die so wretchedly, for one reason only, that the caste of Faku had robbed him of his strength. Alas, he who had done many deeds might not save her now. He could scarcely hold himself upright against the rock. He thought of it, and the tears flowed down his face, and fell onto the hand of Lily. She felt them fall, and spoke.
Weep not, my husband, she said. I have been all too ill a wife to you. Do not mourn for me, yet remember that I loved you well.
And again she was silent for a long space. Then she spoke for the last time of all, and her voice came in a gasping whisper through the hole in the rock.
Farewell, Umslopogaas, my husband and my brother. I thank you for your love, Umslopogaas. Ah, I die.
Umslopogaas could make no answer. Only he watched the little hand he held. Twice it opened, twice it closed upon his own. Then it opened for the third time, turned grey, quivered, and was still for ever. Now it was at the hour of dawn that Nada died. End of chapter 34. Chapter 35 of Nada the Lily by H. Rider Haggard. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The vengeance of Mopo and his Fosterling. It chanced that on this day of Nada's death, and at that same hour of dawn, I, Mopo, came from my mission back to the kraal of the people of the axe, having succeeded in my end, for that great chief whom I had gone out to visit had hearkened to my words. As the light broke, I reached the town, and lo, it was blackness and a desolation. Here is the footmark of Dingaan, I said to myself, and walked to and fro, groaning heavily. Presently I found a knot of men who were of the people that had escaped the slaughter, hiding in the mealie fields, lest the slayers should return, and from them I drew all the story. I listened in silence, for, my father, I was grown old in misfortune. Then I asked, where were the slayers of the king? They replied that they did not know. The soldiers had gone up the Goat's mountain after the wolf brethren and Nada the Lily, and from the forest had come a howling of beasts and sounds of war. Then there was silence, and none had been seen to return from the mountain. Only all day long the vultures hung over it. Let us go up the mountain, I said. At first they feared, because of the evil name of the place, but in the end they came with me, and we followed on the path of the impi of the slayers, and guessed all that had befallen it. At length we reached the knees of stone, and saw the place of the great fight of the wolf brethren. All those who had taken part in that fight were now but bones, because the vultures had picked them every one, except Galazi, for on the breast of Galazi lay the old wolf Deathgrip that was yet alive. I drew near the body, and the great wolf struggled to his feet and ran at me with bristling hair and open jaws, from which no sound came. Then, being spent, he rolled over dead. Now I looked round, seeking the axe groan-maker among the bones of the slain, and did not find it, and the hope came into my heart that Umslopogaas had escaped the slaughter. Then we went on in silence to where I knew the cave must be, and there by its mouth lay the body of a man. I ran to it. It was Umslopogaas, wasted with hunger, and in his temple was a great wound, and on his breast and limbs were many other wounds. Moreover, in his hand he held another hand, a dead hand that was thrust through a hole in the rock. I knew its shape well. It was the little hand of my child, Nada the Lily. Now I understood, and bending down I felt the heart of Umslopogaas, and laid the down of an eagle on his lips. His heart still stirred, and the down was lifted gently. I bade those with me drag aside the stone, and they did so with toil. Now the light flowed into the cave, and by it we saw the shape of Nada, my daughter. She was somewhat wasted, but still very beautiful in her death. I felt her heart also. It was still, and her breast grew cold. Then I spoke. The dead to the dead, let us tend the living. So we bore in Umslopogaas, and I caused broth to be made, and poured it down his throat. Also I cleansed his great wound, and bound healing herbs upon it, plying all my skill. Well I knew the arts of healing, my father, I who was the first of the Izinyanga of medicine, and, had it not been for my craft, Umslopogaas had never lived, for he was very near his end. Still, there where once he had been nursed by Galazi the Wolf, I brought him back to life. It was 3 days till he spoke, and before his sense returned to him, I caused a great hole to be dug in the floor of the cave, and there, in the hole, I buried Nada, my daughter, and we heaped lily blooms upon her to keep the earth from her, and then closed in her grave, for I was not minded that Umslopogaas should look upon her dead, lest he also should die from the sight, and because of his desire to follow her. Also I buried Galazi the Wolf in the cave, and set the watcher in his hand, and there they both sleep who are friends at last, the lily and the wolf together. Ah, when shall there be such another man, and such another maid? At length on the 3rd day Umslopogaas spoke, asking for Nada. I pointed to the earth, and he remembered and understood. Thereafter the strength of Umslopogaas gathered on him slowly, and the hole in his skull skinned over. But now his hair was grizzled, and he scarcely smiled again, but grew even more grim and stern than he had been before. Soon we learned all the truth about Zenita, for the women and children came back to the town of the people of the axe. Only Zenita and the children of Umslopogaas did not come back. Also, a spy reached me from the Machlabatine, and told me of the end of Zenita and of the flight of Dingaan before the Boers. Now, when Umslopogaas had recovered, I asked him what he would do, and whether or not I should pursue my plots to make him king of the land. But Umslopogaas shook his head, saying that he had no heart that way. He would destroy a king indeed, but now he no longer desired to be a king. He sought revenge alone. I said that it was well. I also sought vengeance, and seeking together we would find it. Now, my father, there is much more to tell, but shall I tell it? The snow has melted, your cattle have been found where I told you they should be, and you wished to be gone, and I also, I would be gone upon a longer journey. Listen, my father, I will be short. This came into my mind, to play off Panda against Dingaan. It was for such an hour of need that I saved Panda alive. After the battle of the Blood River, Dingaan summoned Panda to a hunt. Then it was that I journeyed to the kraal of Panda on the lower Tugela, and with me Umslopogaas. I warned Panda that he should not go to this hunt, for he was the game himself, but that he should rather fly into Natal with all his people. He did so, and then I opened talk with the Boers, and more especially with that Boer who was named Ungalunkulu, or Great Arm. I showed the Boer that Dingaan was wicked and not to be believed, but Panda was faithful and good. The end of it was that the Boers and Panda made war together on Dingaan. Yes, I made that war that we might be revenged on Dingaan. Thus, my father, do little things lead to great. Were we at the big fight? The Battle of Magongo? Yes, my father, we were there. When Dingaan's people drove us back and all seemed lost, it was I who put into the mind of Nongalaza the general to pretend to direct the Boers where to attack, for the Amabuna stood out of that fight, leaving it to us black people. It was Umslopogaas who cut his way with Groanmaker through a wing of one of Dingaan's regiments, till he came to the Boer captain Ungalunkulu and shouted to him to turn the flank of Dingaan. That finished it, my father, for they feared to stand against us both, the white and the black together. They fled, and we followed and slew, and Dingaan ceased to be a king. He ceased to be a king, but he still lived, and while he lived our vengeance was hungry. So we went to the Boer captain and to Panda, and spoke to them nicely, saying, "We have served you well, we have fought for you, and so ordered things that victory is yours. Now grant us this request, that we may follow Dingaan, who has fled into hiding, and kill him wherever we find him, for he has worked us wrong, and we would avenge it." Then the white captain and Panda smiled and said, "Go, children, and prosper in your search. No one thing shall please us more than to know that Dingaan is dead," and they gave us men to go with us. Then we hunted that king, week by week, as men hunt a wounded buffalo. We hunted him to the jungles of the Umfalozi and through them, but he fled ever, for he knew that the avengers of blood were on his spoor. After that, for a while we lost him. Then we heard that he had crossed the Pongolo with some of the people who still clung to him. We followed him to the place KwaMiawo, and there we lay hid in the bush watching. At last our chance came. Dingaan walked in the bush, and with him 2 men only. We stabbed the men and seized him. Dingaan looked at us and knew us, and his knees trembled with fear. Then I spoke. "What was that message which I sent thee, O Dingaan, who art no more a king? That thou didst ill to drive me away, was it not? Because I set thee on thy throne, and I alone could hold thee there." He made no answer, and I went on. "I, Mopo, son of Macadama, set thee on thy throne, O Dingaan, who wast a king, and I, Mopo, have pulled thee down from thy throne. But my message did not end there. It said that, ill as thou hadst done to drive me away, yet worse shouldst thou do to look upon my face again, for that day should be thy day of doom." Still he made no answer. Then Umslopogaas spoke. "I am that slaughterer, O Dingaan, no more a king, whom thou didst send slayers many and fierce to eat up at the kraal of the people of the axe. Where are thy slayers now, O Dingaan? Before all is done thou shalt look upon them." "Kill me and make an end. It is your hour," said Dingaan. "Not yet a while, O son of Senzangakona," answered Umslopogaas, "and not here. There lived a certain woman, and she was named Nada the Lily. I was her husband, O Dingaan, and Mopo here, he was her father. But alas, she died, and sadly she lingered 3 days and nights before she died. Thou shalt see the spot and hear the tale, O Dingaan. It will wring thy heart which was ever tender. There lived certain children, born of another woman named Zenita, little children, sweet and loving. I was their father, O elephant in a pit, and one Dingaan slew them. Of them thou shalt hear also. Now, away, for the path is far. 2 days went by, my father, and Dingaan sat bound and alone in the cave on Ghost Mountain. We had dragged him slowly up the mountain, for he was heavy as an ox. 3 men pushing at him, and 3 others pulling at a cord about his middle, we dragged him up, staying now and again to show him the bones of those whom he had sent out to kill us, and telling him the tale of that fight. Now at length we were in the cave, and I sent away those who were with us, for we wished to be alone with Dingaan at the last. He sat down on the floor of the cave, and I told him that beneath the earth on which he sat lay the bones of that Nada whom he had murdered, and the bones of Galazi the Wolf. Then we rolled the stone down the mouth of the cave, and left him with the ghost of Galazi and the ghost of Nada. On the 3rd day before the dawn, we came again and looked on him. Slay me, he said, for the ghost torments me. No longer art thou great, O shadow of a king, I said, who now dost tremble before 2 ghosts out of all the thousands that thou hast made. Say then, how shall it fare with thee presently, when thou art of their number? Now Dingaan prayed for mercy. Mercy, thou hyena, I answered. Thou prayest for mercy who showed none to any. Give me back my daughter. Give this man back his wife and children. Then we will talk of mercy. Come forth, coward, and die the death of cowards. So, my father, we dragged him out, groaning, to the cleft that is above in the breast of the old stone witch, that same cleft where Galazi had found the bones. There we stood, waiting for the moment of the dawn, that hour when Nada had died. Then we cried her name into his ears, and the names of the children of Umslopogaas, and cast him into the cleft. This was the end of Dingaan, my father. Dingaan, who had the fierce heart of Chaka without its greatness. End of chapter 35. Chapter 36 of Nada the Lily by H. Rider Haggard. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Mopo ends his tale. That is the tale of Nada the Lily, my father, and of how we avenged her. A sad tale. Yes, a sad tale. But all was sad in those days. It was otherwise afterwards when Panda reigned, for Panda was a man of peace. There is little more to tell. I left the land where I could stay no longer, who had brought about the deaths of 2 kings, and came here to Natal to live near where the Kraal Duguza once had stood. The bones of Dingaan as they lay in the cleft were the last things my eyes beheld, for after that I became blind, and saw the sun no more, nor any light. Why, I do not know. Perhaps from too much weeping, my father. So I changed my name, lest the spear might reach the hearts that had planned the death of 2 kings and a prince, Chaka, Dingaan, and Umhlangana of the blood royal. silently and by night, Umslopogaas, my fosterling, led me across the border and brought me here to Stanger. And here, as an old witch-doctor, I have lived for many, many years. I am rich. Umslopogaas craved back from Panda the cattle of which Dingaan had robbed me, and drove them hither. But none were here who had lived in the Kraal Duguza. None knew in Sweete, the blind old witch-doctor, that Mopo who stabbed Chaka, the lion of the Zulu. None know it now. You have heard the tale, and you alone, my father. Do not tell it again till I am dead. Umslopogaas. Yes, he went back to the people of the axe and ruled them, but they were never so strong again as they had been before they smote the Halakazi in their caves, and Dingaan ate them up. Panda let him be, and liked him well, for Panda did not know that the slaughterer was son to Chaka his brother, and Umslopogaas let that dog lie, for when Nada died he lost his desire to be great. Yet he became captain of the Nkomabakosi regiment, and fought in many battles, doing mighty deeds, and stood by Umbulazi, son of Panda, in the great fray on the Tugala, when Chwayo slew his brother Umbulazi. After that also he plotted against Chwayo, whom he hated, and had it not been for a certain white man, a hunter named Makumazahu, Umslopogaas would have been killed. But the white man saved him by his wit. Yes, and at times he came to visit me, for he still loved me as of old. But now he has fled north, and I shall hear his voice no more. Nay, I do not know all the tale. There was a woman in it. Women were ever the bane of Umslopogaas, my fosterling. I forget the story of that woman, for I remember only these things that happened long ago, before I grew very old. Look on this right hand of mine, my father. I cannot see it now, and yet I, Mopo, son of Macadama, seem to see it as once I saw, red with the blood of 2 kings. Look on. Suddenly the aged man ceased. His head fell forward upon his withered breast. When the white man to whom he told this story lifted it and looked at him, he was dead. End of chapter 36. End of Nada the Lily by H. Rider Haggard. Read by Phil Benson in Sydney, Australia.